Hey everybody, this is DeucesCracked here for DeucesCracked.com, and today we're going to talk about continuation betting the flop in heads-up PLO. We're going to be playing a ton of hands from the button in heads-up PLO, which means we're going to find ourselves in a lot of positions on the flop with a whole slew of different hands on every type of flop you can imagine. Our decision to continuation bet is actually going to be a function of the board texture, like we've talked about in other videos, and to some degree our opponent's ranges. So let's just go through a quick example here. Let's say we raise the button with 6-6, 8-8 double suited, and our opponent just calls, and the flop is King, King, 4. Are we going to continuation bet, and if so, how much? Well, there's a couple of things to consider. The first being there's no draws in this flop. So if there was a flush draw, a straight draw, like our opponent can call with that, our opponent really should only be deciding if they want to continue with a king or like maybe a pocket pair of their own, or if they want to try to bluff this flop. There's 2 kings left in the deck. Which, silly enough, the more kings on the flop, the less that our opponent can have. So there's less top pair opportunities for him to call. We don't really expect to get called by a 4 here unless it's against a really weak opponent, but we'll touch on that in firing the second barrel. Our hand is vulnerable. There's a lot of bad turn cards for us. Anything 9 or higher is bad. A 4 is actually kind of bad too. So we would like this hand to be over kind of right now. Right? We're not looking to check to induce here. And we have some semblance of equity, which is something I always like, unless I have a strong read or a good understanding of my opponent's play. We have some equity here, so if we do get called and my opponent does have a king, I can spike one of my 4 outs for a full house to bet down. What this tells me is here I'm probably going to make a smallish to maybe half pot continuation bet. There's no need to bet big because we don't expect to get called very often. And a smaller bet will get us a better price on the kind of bluff we're running here. Just really want to take the pot down. There's no need to be committing a lot of money to this board. Let's go through a second one. We raise 2, 3, 4, 5 double suited on the button, and our opponent calls, and the flop is Jack 10, 8. One thing we didn't touch on in the first example is 3-betting tendencies. You will want to keep that in mind because if the opponent does 3-bet a lot of rundowns, you can maybe discount some stronger hands, but we're going to go ahead and assume we're playing our typical small stakes heads up player, and they're going to be calling a ton. So what do we think about this flop? Just take a moment to think about it. You can pause if you like. And jumping in here, the first thing we see is there are a ton of draws. I mean, straight draws, flush draws. Anyone who's played a decent amount of heads up PLO, not really expecting someone to be folding like 10-9 or 8-9 here, and those spade draws are going to call twice. And we have little to no equity when we get called. I mean, running trips, any running trips are pretty tough to come by. That's just about the only hand we can get. And this really does hit a calling range out of the big blind quite well. I wouldn't even continuation bet here. I think there's some boards you just want to give up on. I don't want to be c-betting 100%. I'm going to be betting a lot of hands here, but this is just one where I'm expecting to get called at a really high frequency. I'm rarely, if ever, going to fire a second barrel with no blockers. So I think your best bet is just to check back and quit on this pot. That's it for now, guys. Take a look through your own hands and feel free to post some continuation betting spots. This has been DeucesCracked, and I look forward to seeing your posts on the forums.